Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. How does an HOA place a lien on a property that isn't even in the HOA? That's the threat I got after someone destroyed my certified pollinator habitat while I was away. They called it emergency beautification. I called it something else. And the next email I received changed everything. I bought my property about a year and a half ago, and it's been my dream project ever since. Half an acre, slightly wooded with mature trees and natural undergrowth. The best part? It sits right on the edge of one of those pristine, sterile subdivisions where every blade of grass has to be exactly 2.5 inches tall, but my lot isn't part of their HOA. Never has been, never will be. Some quirk in the original zoning from the 1970s grandfathered it out when the subdivision was built around it. I'm really into native plants and pollinator conservation. I know that sounds kind of niche, but it's something I've been passionate about for years. So when I bought this lot, I saw an opportunity to do something meaningful. I spent over a year planning and planting a native pollinator garden. I'm talking about carefully researched local wildflowers, native grasses, milkweed for monarchs, and a bunch of other species that used to grow naturally in this area before everything got paved over and turned into lawn monocultures. I didn't just throw some seeds around and call it a day. I hired an ecological landscaping company, consulted with a botanist from the state university, and registered the property as a certified wildlife habitat. I spent close to $8,000 between the consulting fees, the mature plants, which are not cheap, the specialized soil amendments, and the labor to do it right. The plants I chose weren't the kind you can just grab at a big box store. Some of them were propagated from local seed stock, and a few were genuinely rare cultivars of native species. To me, it was beautiful, natural, alive, full of bees and butterflies by midsummer. To the HOA next door, apparently, it looked like a vacant lot full of weeds. The HOA president lives 3 houses down from where my lot starts. I'd seen him a few times, always staring at my property with this pinched expression like he'd just smelled something bad. He never introduced himself or said hello, just stared. I'd heard from another neighbor, who wasn't in the HOA either, that this guy was known for being extremely aggressive about property standards and had a reputation for trying to extend the HOA's authority beyond its actual legal boundaries. I didn't think much of it. My lot wasn't part of his kingdom, so what could he do? Turns out, quite a lot. I went out of town for a long weekend in late September, just a short trip to visit family, nothing major. 4 days. When I got back and turned onto my street, I almost didn't recognize my own property. Everything was gone. I'm not talking about a light trim or some cleanup. I mean scorched earth. Every single wildflower, every native grass, every carefully placed plant had been mowed down to bare dirt. The saplings I'd planted along the back edge were snapped off at ground level. The milkweed that had taken months to establish was shredded. It looked like someone had taken a bush hog to the entire lot and then gone back over it with a weed whacker for good measure. I sat in my car for probably 10 minutes just staring at it. I couldn't process what I was seeing. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't a lawn crew hitting the wrong address. This was deliberate, aggressive destruction. I got out and walked the property. The damage was even worse up close. They'd torn out everything, including some plants that had root systems I'd specifically chosen to prevent erosion. The soil was torn up and compacted from heavy machinery. I found tire tracks from what looked like a riding mower or small tractor. I was furious, but I was also confused. Who would do this, and why? The answer came 3 days later in my mailbox. It was a printed invoice on official HOA stationery. Emergency lot beautification and landscaping services in bold letters at the top. The amount due was $850, with a payment deadline of 14 days. Attached to the invoice was a welcome letter congratulating me on my decision to join the HOA and explaining the benefits of membership. I read it 3 times before I understood what had happened. They thought I'd agreed to join. Or maybe they just didn't care that I hadn't. Either way, they'd taken it upon themselves to destroy my garden and were now demanding I pay them for the privilege. I called the number on the invoice immediately. It rang through to the HOA president's personal cell phone. He answered on the second ring, and I could hear the smugness in his voice before he even finished saying hello. I told him who I was and why I was calling. I wasn't yelling, but I wasn't exactly calm either. He cut me off before I could finish. He said the lot had been an eyesore for months and was bringing down property values for the entire neighborhood. He said the HOA board had received multiple complaints and had decided to take corrective action. When I pointed out that I wasn't part of the HOA and they had no authority over my property, he actually laughed. He told me that my lot fell under the HOA's visual jurisdiction because it was visible from the street and from several HOA properties. He said that gave them the right to maintain community standards. When I said that wasn't how property law works, he got annoyed. He said they had the invoice, I owed the money, and if I didn't pay within 14 days, they'd place a lien on my property. I asked him if he understood that what he'd done was trespassing and destruction of private property. He said I was being dramatic and that I should be thanking them for the free cleanup. Then he said he had another call and hung up on me. I spent that evening looking at my destroyed garden and trying not to lose it completely. But somewhere in the anger, I started thinking strategically. This guy had just admitted in a phone call that he'd ordered the destruction of my property, and he'd sent me a written invoice as proof. The next morning, I sent him an email. I kept it polite and slightly confused, like I was just trying to understand the situation. I asked for the paperwork trail. Specifically, I wanted to see the signed authorization for the work, the official work order from the landscaping company, and any documentation showing the HOA's legal authority over my deed. He responded within 2 hours. The email was dripping with condescension. He said he was attaching the work order as requested, and that it clearly showed the HOA had paid for services rendered at my address. He included a scanned copy of the landscaping company's invoice and work order. It had his signature at the bottom, authorizing the crew to enter my specific address and clear-cut all overgrowth and weeds from lot. He ended the email with a line about how this was all the proof anyone would need in court and that I should pay up or prepare to deal with a lien and legal fees. I saved that email immediately. Then I saved it again in 3 different places. He'd just handed me a signed confession. I contacted an environmental landscaping company the next day and asked them to do a full damage assessment. I needed documentation of exactly what had been destroyed and what it would cost to replace. The consultant who came out was actually horrified when I explained what had happened. She walked the property for over an hour, taking photos and notes. Her report came back a week later. The replacement cost wasn't $850, it wasn't even close. Because these were mature native plants, many of them propagated from local genetics. The actual replacement cost was calculated at $12,400. That included the cost of new mature plants, which are exponentially more expensive than seedlings, specialized soil remediation to fix the compaction damage, and professional installation labor. She also noted in her report that several of the destroyed plants were species of concern in our state and that the habitat had been registered with both the State Wildlife Agency and a National Pollinator Conservation Program. The destruction of a registered habitat could potentially carry additional penalties. I took that report, the HOA's invoice, the work order with the president's signature, and all my original documentation from when I'd established the garden to a property attorney. I didn't go to some strip mall legal clinic. I found a lawyer who specialized in property disputes and HOA issues. She looked at everything for maybe 15 minutes before she smiled. She said this was one of the most clear-cut cases she'd ever seen. The HOA president had committed criminal trespass and destruction of property, and he documented the entire thing in writing. The fact that he'd tried to bill me for it afterward was almost funny. We drafted a response letter. It was not friendly. The letter went to the HOA board, not just the president. It laid out the facts very clearly. My property was not part of the HOA and had never been subject to their authority. The HOA president had ordered a landscaping crew to trespass on my property and destroy a registered native habitat garden. The destruction was documented. The replacement cost was calculated at $12,400. And the president's own signed work order proved his direct responsibility. The letter stated that I would not be paying the $850 invoice. Instead, I was demanding immediate payment of $12,400 for the replacement cost of the destroyed garden, plus my attorney's fees. If payment wasn't received within 14 days, I would be filing a lawsuit against both the HOA and the president personally. We also sent a separate letter to the landscaping company that had done the actual mowing. That letter was a little more generous. It explained that they'd been misled by the HOA president and that they'd trespassed on private property. We said we understood they'd acted in good faith based on false information, but that they should be aware of the legal situation in case it escalated. The landscaping company responded within 48 hours. Their lawyer sent a very panicked letter stating that they had been explicitly told by the HOA president that the HOA owned the lot and had full authority to authorize the work. They included their own copy of the work order, plus email correspondence where the president had assured them the property was part of the HOA. They were clearly trying to establish that they'd been lied to and wanted nothing to do with any lawsuit. That was helpful. It meant the landscaping company would likely testify against the president if this went to court. About a week after we sent our demand letter, my attorney got a call from the HOA's law firm. Apparently, the board had brought in outside counsel as soon as they'd received our letter, and that counsel had very quickly determined that the board was in serious trouble. The HOA's attorney requested a meeting. My lawyer agreed, and we met at her office with 2 representatives from the HOA's legal team. The HOA president was not there, which I thought was telling. The meeting was short. The HOA's lawyers basically admitted that their client had no legal defense. The president had acted without board authorization, which we hadn't even known, and his actions had exposed the HOA to massive liability. They couldn't place a lien on my property because I wasn't a member. They couldn't claim authority over my lot because they didn't have any. And they couldn't deny the destruction because their own president had signed the work order they offered to settle. They would pay the full $12,400 replacement cost plus $3,000 in attorney's fees. In exchange, I would agree not to pursue criminal charges against the president or a civil lawsuit against the HOA. My attorney asked for a moment alone with me. When the HOA's lawyers left the room, she said the offer was reasonable. We could probably get more if we went to court, but it would take months and there was always some risk. This was a guaranteed payout that would fully compensate me for the damage. I agreed. We signed the settlement that afternoon. The fallout was apparently spectacular, though I only heard about it secondhand. The HOA had to do a special assessment to cover the settlement. Every house in the subdivision got hit with an unexpected $200 fee to replenish the reserve fund. The board sent out a letter explaining that the assessment was necessary due to unauthorized actions by former leadership. Former leadership. Past tense. According to my non-HOA neighbor, there was an emergency meeting where the president was essentially forced to resign. The board had been furious when they found out what he'd done, especially since he'd never consulted them or gotten approval. Several homeowners threatened to sue him personally for the assessment fees. He apparently tried to defend himself by saying he'd been protecting property values, but nobody wanted to hear it when they were all getting charged $200 because of his crusade. He resigned from the board entirely and stopped showing up at neighborhood events. Someone told me he listed his house for sale about 2 months later. I used the settlement money to restore my garden, but I made a few additions. First, I had a privacy fence installed along the entire property line between my lot and the subdivision. It was a nice fence, solid wood, 6 feet tall, completely legal and completely opaque. Then I replanted the garden. I went even bigger this time. More native species, more milkweed, more wildflowers. I added a small seating area in the middle where I could sit and watch the pollinators. By the following summer, it was even better than the original. The best part is that the HOA can't see any of it anymore. The fence blocks their view completely. They have no idea what's happening on my side of the property line, and they have absolutely no say in it. I was out there last weekend, sitting in my garden watching a monarch butterfly land on one of the milkweed plants. My lot is probably still the most naturalistic property on the street, and it probably still drives some of them crazy. But there's nothing they can do about it. The fence stays up, the garden stays wild, and I've never received another invoice. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Never thought I'd having anything to contribute here. Always loved the stories though. Turns out I can contribute now. For some context, I live in what people call a rural small town, and what others call a ghost town. We have a population of 500 people, spanning 57 miles. If you don't want to get price gouged by the one and only family-owned grocery store, the nearest town with Costco's and Walmarts and stuff is an hour and a half away. The population is mostly people who grew up there, mostly elderly who spent their entire lives there. And their longevity isn't long anymore. Population is decreasing faster than it can be replenished. Haven't always lived here. Not till I had my daughter and moved in with family, but pretty much everyone around here I have known since I was born. Unfortunately, I was abused, assaulted, and taken advantage of by the man who owns the only store in town. When I finally spoke out, I lost pretty much everyone. They weren't gonna make this man mad. Only a few people were on my side and helped me. One couple the most. Let's call them Jay and his wife T. They have always been the kindest. So loving, so caring and helpful. We've spent a lot of time together over the years. And they have a close relationship with my now 5-year-old. They are snowbirds, so we only see them about 5 to 6 months out of the year. Last year they were the only two on my side and helped me with it all. Jay came to me one day and handed me a house key, explained that I'm always welcome, that while they are gone I can use it as sanctuary, a place to go to have a minute alone. It's only 3 houses away. He said no matter what I'd always be welcome, and the next time I saw his wife T, she said the same exact thing. We had a hard time parting last year. Tears were shed. Almost every day they sent me local job postings and check in and asking for pics of my little girl, always asking how I was, and I'd do it in return. I never once went to the house. It's a beautiful place. Honestly, could be considered a sanctuary. But I wanted to wait. I wanted to see them and enjoy the space with them. 2 weeks before Easter, they both texted and said, "We can't wait to see you and your daughter. We will be home Easter Day and can meet up at the house the next day." So Easter came and went. I reached out. Suddenly, no responses, no answers. 2 days ago, I reached out to Jay. I've been fighting for a position at the hospital daycare half-hour away, and after 4 interviews got it. Told him and he ignored it, whatever. Figured they were busy settling in. Last night he simply texted me, "Enjoy the good life." I said thanks and expressed my excitement to reunite. And 7 a.m. he texted me saying, "If you're not busy, I'd like my house key back. I'd like you to drop it off." At that point it all came together. For whatever reason I'm completely cut off. No explication. I know there's 2 sides to every story, but I've known them since childhood. Every word we've ever exchanged was love and support and hobbies and all that. I said, "Okay, no problem. I'll drop it off tonight after work." I did in fact drop it off. I put it in a tiny, very tightly sealed container with a note. So after work I drove down our back street. They were both waiting up, watching me through, the window clearly expecting me to get out and bring it to them. But just as it said in my note, "Hope this key finds you well," I have now dropped it off. I did in fact drop it off. Make sure to turn my phone flashlight on so they could see me. Drop it off. The shock I saw on them through the window was priceless. I waited. 5 minutes later got a text, very angry he was. I didn't bother to read it, simply said, "I told you I'd drop it off and I did," and blocked him. Maybe it's not huge and mostly petty, but I do maliciously comply to his request. The next one is an entitled people story. Recently my best friend showed me some videos he found of people reading my posts on YouTube for content, and they just ranted, over-exaggerated half of everything I said, and completely skipped over numerous things. They even complained that I put in too much detail. To be honest, I laughed my ass off seeing them rant. I'm not gonna say they're wrong about me detailing too much, because they weren't. I wouldn't say I'm so big of a talker in person, but through a keyboard all bets were off. One of the few things I was kinda angry about was when they tried to call BS on the dugout fort I made in the woods when I was 11, and they kept saying I was 8. Come on guys, get your details right if you're going to rant about something, or someone you only know through a Reddit account. Also, that fort was a hole, dug in soft forest dirt. It's not like I needed a jackhammer when digging it out, and I worked for weeks on it. Any determined kid in reasonably good shape with even the most basic of tools could have built that fort. But if they hated how descriptive I was, and how much I mentioned my bike or genders of people I knew/know, then why were they even reading it on air, if not for views and a reason to gripe at a man they've never met? Also, they uploaded another video about my post about my old college roommates. They kinda acted like I was being a jerk over the spaghetti dinner I made for my roommates when we made a deal that they'd each kick in $5, and they reneged on paying me. I was piss poor at the time, guys. After bills and food costs, I was very lucky if I had even $50 to my name at the end of each month. I had to take odd jobs to get extra cash when I needed it. Do any of them know those kinds of financial struggles? Something tells me no. So I'd say it was more than fair that I not only griped about $15, but also blackmailed them into paying me $60 each when they threw out all my food and stole my game systems. Anyway, since I came back for this, I may as well tell the last thing thus far that happened with my ex-wife. A couple months ago I closed on a 1-bedroom condo that I got for an excellent price. The ones selling it were an elderly couple that were moving to Arizona, and their son is a co-worker of mine. The condo is fairly outdated, but it's in good shape, with a surprisingly large closet I can fit my bike into. The condo is slightly farther from my work than the apartment I was renting before, and I had to buy my way out of my prior lease, but the condo was too nice a deal to pass up, and it's in a bit of a safer area, so I've taken to riding my bike to work sometimes, even though I'm kind of afraid of getting hit by a car, and I've been getting into better shape thanks to the extra riding. I also had to replace my bike's crank axle caged bearings because the original ones didn't hold up. But otherwise, it's still more or less exactly how it looked in the picture I posted a while back. As for my condo, I expected my narcissistic estranged mother to contact me about it because she'd naturally want something from me when I get a leg up in life. But it was my ex who contacted me instead. I guess she'd been stalking my social media or something. Not surprised about that. I'd been living in the condo about 3 weeks when I got an evening phone call. I was playing video games and answered my phone by reflex. As soon as I knew it was her, I turned on the recording app on my phone and told her I was recording. She didn't care one bit and sounded very drunk. I'd dealt with her bad drinking many times, and the more drunk she is, the more childish she is. She once got so drunk that she got in a whose assets are bigger, smaller fight with some random woman at a bar, and when I got her home, she kept trying to walk into the neighbor's house, and I had to forcibly drag her into our place where she vomited all over me, and I had to clean myself and her up before making her go to bed. And I had to stay up for another hour to make sure she didn't try to get up and try to walk off, which happened a few times before. She woke up half naked on the floor of the kitchen once, and another time woke up in the backyard when it started raining. I don't think I should describe in detail the worst time here, due to certain objects being in certain places when she somehow woke up hungover in her car. I had to bring out a blanket to wrap her in, and thankfully no neighbors saw. But all that crap was mild compared to the other stuff she put me through while we were married. Back to the phone call, I pointed out to my ex that she and I don't really have anything left to do with each other and asked what she wanted. She went on a drunken rant about me buying the condo. She kept talking about how her life is crap, she has debt she's paying off a loan, she got written up at work, she had to sell her BMW to save money, has to drive some crappy old used car now. No, she didn't elaborate on what kind of car, year, or model, but she's always loved BMWs. She keeps losing friends. The guy she was dating recently dumped her, and she hates her apartment because it's small and her neighbors suck. And here I am with a great condo she'd strangle someone to be living in. I told her none of that really had anything to do with me. And then she insulted me and told me I left her all alone after I caused her mother to keel over from a heart attack. I reminded her that she admitted in the divorce why she was really married to me, and I wasn't going to remain trapped in a marriage where I was getting used for my wallet all the time. Then I pointed out it's because of her entitled attitude that she can't keep a man or a friend in her life. She lost it on me, and I could barely understand anything she was saying. I hung up on her, and she started texting me like mad. I just shut the phone off for the night and let her fume. The next morning, I turned my phone on to get a flood of messages and texted her back that if she won't leave me alone, I'd look into filing for a restraining order. She just texted me back a middle finger. But then that evening, she called me while drunk, again. I bluntly told her I was recording her again, and I did not want to talk to her. She told me to shut up, and she was going to get her rant in. I hung up just before she finished that sentence. She immediately called back. I answered and let her go on for about 10 seconds before hanging up again, so she went back to texting. She admitted she was jealous AF I bought the condo, and that her life shouldn't suck right now when mine is doing better than ever. I pointed out that the only one screwing up her life is her. She ruined our marriage, and she knows it. I wasn't surprised how she kept losing people since she's so toxic. She texted back that she wasn't toxic, just misunderstood. I texted several laughing emojis and then let her have it. I reminded her about how she'd tricked me into marrying her, how she used me, lied to me, was financially controlling to me, put me down so much, let her mother put me down so much, and didn't give a crap about my key collection being stolen by her mother when she knew it was my pride and joy. She just used me for financial security. I'd say that's pretty damn toxic. There was just no point in trying to save a marriage as doomed as ours was, especially since she blamed me for her mother's death. I didn't unalive the old witch. Her mother's fast food addiction and hoarder house that was filled with decades-old garbage, rodent infestation, and black mold did her in. The only thing I was to blame for was reporting the house, which was a danger to her and everyone around her. My ex texted back a crying emoji, then an anger emoji, then a middle finger emoji, followed by a poop emoji. I sarcastically texted her that was real mature, along with an eye roll emoji. I can only imagine how much she was losing it on her end, because I got a garbled mess of letters for a second, followed by her calling me a POS that thinks I'm better than her. I told her I could care less if I'm better than her, because it's not a high bar to get over. She gave me an FU in all caps and like a dozen exclamation points. I pointed out she's just projecting her hate onto me because she knows she screwed up. And if she hates her car so much, maybe she should get an e-bike like her mother did. Right after I texted that, my phone started ringing again. I denied the call. She tried again. I denied it again. I texted her that I was blocking her number now. And if she tries to bother me again, I'll seek legal counsel. Her last reply before I blocked the number was to say that she hopes I fall off my bike and break my neck. It's been a while now and she's not tried to contact me again by any other means. It's really no surprise she'd blame me for her misery. She just doesn't want to own up to the fact that she's a terrible person. I'm no angel either. Anyone who's read my posts knows that. But I played the good submissive guy to my ex for far too long, and I really don't care to ever speak to her again. The next one is an entitled parent story. This is going to be a different kind of entitlement story and one that I dealt with for decades before realizing the harm it caused. My father is a very typical Chinese businessman. He sneaked to Canada when I was very young and stayed until we got citizenship and moved me and Mom over. Then he promptly went back to China to start a business as soon as my sister was born. For years, the only time he talked to us is when he needs English translation of documents and carry out his business dealings overseas. To compensate us for his lack of presence, he sends us money and gifts us gaudy brand name clothes that don't fit. He doesn't know our size. Once I'm an adult, he tricked me into a panic job search by saying his business is failing and can't send us mortgage payments. I stayed in a soul-sucking underpaid job for 2 years, working through mental meltdowns, believing I'm the only financial source. He finally slipped up one time when he needed me to pay for a business deal in Canada, and I blinked and said I don't have any money. Throughout my adulthood, he would require me to do various errands in ridiculous hours because of the time zone difference, draw on my own savings to manage his finances, retract multiple times the monies he gave me as gift, burdened my mom and I with managing rental houses he partially paid, all in the name of family assets. He is a capitalist through and through, wringing every drop of free labor out of his own family with the pretense of a benevolent father. One of his favorite justification is, "This will all be yours when I'm gone." I started to realize he is abusing this financial control when my sister got a raise in her job. As my mom and I were celebrating with my sister, she said, "Now I can take care of you and Mom." I could not convey the full emotion in words, but it slowly dawned on me that we don't need my father's financial support anymore. We are independent and can act on our own interest instead of his. My sister also encourages me to prioritize my mental health, and I slowly grew a backbone with regards to dealings with Dad. The tipping point came some months ago when he once again nagged me about going into real estate, getting a license so he can buy more houses cheaper. It's easy to get a license, just a couple months of study. I finally snapped and answered in a way that a well-mannered Chinese daughter would not do. Me. I am not interested in real estate. I am not suited to be a salesman, and I will never apply for a license. I am not working a third job, just, you can have more houses. Him. Shocked. But all the money they earned I'll leave to you. You'll inherit all my money. Me. Exactly. That means the money is not mine right now. They are your money. I'm helping you managing your money because I'm your daughter. I'm not going to work myself to death for you. Him. Can't wrap his head around. You are not making sense. You are earning money that will be yours. I won't be here forever and you'll have it all. Me. Trying hard not to scream. I don't need your money. I'm only doing what I can because you are my father and I'm helping family, but I won't devote all my free time to making you money. Him. Default to guilt tripping. Is this how you repay me for all my sacrifices? Me. Cuts him off. It's your duty to raise me and you have done that. Now it's my duty to take care of you and Mom. Part of that is to tell you I can't make money as you wanted. Me and sister are already making enough to take care of you and Mom. We don't need any more. If you want to earn more money, do it without involving us. I'll only help you when I have time. Him. Move to complaining. Kids nowadays are so lazy. Me. I'm almost 50. I'm not a kid. Him. Clearly mind broke a bit. Me. I have a full-time job that sometime requires overtime. I take care of Mom, our home, and all the rental units. I will not spend my scant free time applying for a realtor license. Now, is there anything else you want to talk to me about? Him. Me. All right. Take care. Don't play golf until your shoulder hurt. Bye. It felt so good after all these years to finally take control of my free time. The shadow of my father's request superseding any activity had always loomed large in my life, and now I can enjoy sunshine once more without fear of needing to do something for him. Anyway, thank you for watching.